For the News and Observer, I'm Dawn Vaughan, Capitol Bureau Chief and host of Under the Dome. You're listening to our latest episode for the week of September 9th, 2024. I'm joined today by my NNO colleague Steve Wiseman for a special sports and politics crossover episode. I'm really excited about this one. Steve, thanks for being on a politics podcast.
It's great to be on a politics podcast. Sports and politics always go hand in hand.
They really do. We'll get to kind of like all the ways that they do. Some things most recently, Brian Fork, who those that work in the legislative building know the chief of staff to Senate Leader Phil Berger, just left for the sports world with the Canes recently. Steve, by the way, there is a Steve Wiseman that works at the legislature. He is the, I can't remember his full title, but he's the food services manager. His office is next to the press room. That's a different Steve. So if anyone was wondering, this Steve Wiseman is the assistant sports editor at the News and Observer. He's also a reporter covering Duke sports. Steve and I go way back to the Durham Herald Sun, where we worked together and on through to the NNO now for 14 years.
Yes. And so, by the way, I'm not responsible for this split pea soup or whatever they serve at the cafeteria.
Lemon chicken soup.
Lemon chicken soup. Okay, see?
Well, you would get like some compliments. All right. So we've got a lot to cover with sports and politics. Let's start with more of the news. So we're recording this Thursday afternoon. People listen, Monday, beginning of the week, with NIL and high school. So what's going on there?
Yeah. So, every state has different rules for NIL. High school athletes allowing to benefit from NIL, name, image, likeness, doing endorsements, signing autographs for money, putting their face on a T-shirt, all that kind of stuff. It's become big in the college sports world, and now it's bled into high schools. In North Carolina, if you attend a private school, you are allowed to do that and stay eligible and everything else. But public school athletes cannot do that. And so a lawsuit was filed a couple of weeks ago by a quarterback from Greensboro named Faison Brandon, who is one of the top players in the class of 2026, claiming that he's being denied free market, that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. So this week, the Board of Education, this Thursday,
past week, yeah.
This past week, the Board of Education had their meeting, and they have decided they want to change it. They want to allow public school students to make earnings from NIL deals. But there's a process to that, right? Mm-hmm. So because the legislature put in some they call them guardrails, I guess, to the Board of Education, so that there has to be a public comment period in October. Mm-hmm. Nothing can be voted on until January, and then it wouldn't go into effect until almost a year from now, July 1st of 2025. So it's still going to be a while before anybody in North Carolina in a public school will be able to get money from these deals, unless this lawsuit, which has been filed, goes through quickly and a judge makes a decision, temporary restraining order, all kinds of stuff like that can happen. So it's changing just like it's changing in the college world.
Yeah, government goes pretty slow most of the time. One thing that took a long time to pass at the legislature and then did almost like as a surprise because there was so much drama for so much time is legalizing sports betting, online mobile betting. Of course, it was already legal in some ways. And there was... it lost by a vote on like the same day there was going to be a Medicaid expansion deal. I feel like over 2 years ago now. Yeah. So there was high drama with it. Democrats and Republicans, those probably followed, all of the drama there. And then it finally happened. And here we are. So what are you seeing of like the impact of that law change already in sports?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, this is a true bipartisan event. Mm-hmm. Which is, as you know, highly unusual in our world today, in our country today. But Democrats and Republicans, both of them, there were people that liked it on both sides of the aisle, and people that didn't like it on both sides of the aisle. It was really interesting from
really
that point of view. But it went into effect last March, right before the ACC tournament, the Monday before the ACC tournament. It's going fine. Of course, the revenue was down over the summer because there were no college events going on and football was over. This is the year we're really going to see the big spike in it, I think, because for the entire NFL season, including the Super Bowl, which is the most bet upon event in the world, that'll be a big draw. And I know one thing from the, I deal with the college athletes in the schools a lot. Yeah. they were worried about the impact it's going to have on athletes. And will first of all, will students get in trouble for gambling too much? It's on your phone, so it's so simple,
Right.
Without cause a problem. And then whether it be pressure on athletes, social media bullying, things like that.
Yeah. Or throwing a game.
Harassment,
Even.
or throwing a game.
Yeah.
So far, we haven't seen anything like that in North Carolina.
Yeah.
There have been things that happen in other states. But the good thing about legalized gambling is it's easier to track it. You know when it's happening. And the casinos want to stop it. They don't want games to get thrown. They want it to be, legit so they can, market it, everything, right? So at this point, there hasn't been the negatives that people feared.
Yeah.
But again, it's only been 6 months, so we'll see how it goes through a whole football season.
Yeah, and the money factor I wrote about recently with the way the state revenues are looking. The budget director Walker, who's a Cooper cabinet appointee, said that right now sports betting isn't bringing enough money to change the way things are going because of these tax cuts, these corporate tax cuts that are been phased in, and individual income tax cuts. And even though sales are doing well, the economy in North Carolina is doing well. If you're looking, down the road with getting less and less income, that's not great for potential financial future. So what Walker said, she said that not just sports betting, but if they decide to legalize the VLTs, which are video lottery terminals, and casinos, then that could change something with revenue. But from her perspective, what she's seeing now is that sports betting isn't going to be enough to balance that out. Now, this is all projection too, because we don't know what'll happen. But I remember, a lot of the debate on the House and Senate floor about, the exact amount, and a lot of the money in there is earmarked, for
Right.
these schools. So what's going to be the impact to the schools that you think?
Yeah, and it's the smaller schools. It's not Carolina and state. They don't need any more revenue from gambling. It's, they'll say they do, but that's how it goes. But it's more for North Carolina Central, Fayetteville State, UNC Greensboro, App State, Western Carolina. Those schools that are the smaller non-ACC schools in our state. They each get, I think it's $300,000 a year from the gambling revenues. So again, that's part of its earmark. I think there's 13 schools maybe that get it. So
I don't remember the exact
that's a
amount or
pretty good amount of
number,
money right
but
there, right?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's like over $3 million. I think it would be if my quick back of the napkin math is good. So
Let's stick with the ACC and the idea of North Carolina teams playing each other, and how, it's still called the Atlantic Coast Conference. I didn't know California was on the Atlantic Coast, so,
Panama Canal Conference.
some lawmakers is there like anything they can do about it? Would they do something about it?
Well, a bill was in last year to ensure that all the in-state teams played each other, and it was heard in committee and it didn't get out of committee.
Yeah.
And I think that was just like maybe the lawmakers kind of a shot across the bow at the schools to make sure we're watching you. We want to make sure, because the big concern is if Carolina and state end up in different conferences, like we've seen happen with Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, Texas A&M for a while were in different conferences. Now they're back in the same conference, but that rivalry goes away, and so they worry about the impact it's going to have on the state if your two biggest public schools don't play each other.
What do you think the impact will be?
It takes away. It's a huge rivalry that people look to all year. State and Carolina and football in particular, and so it just the impact on the state, on the feeling in the state, and
The culture, I guess,
yeah,
some
that's
of
what I'm
the
saying. Like
economy of the day, just a game day, and
Right.
how that's impact on local economies.
and you would hope they
everything.
could still play each other. And that may be what the bill would be.
Yeah.
They could make it so they would have to.
Before we take a break, I want to get to one more thing. Alcohol sales at college sports was something that lawmakers who have been around, it was 5 years ago now?
Yeah, 2019 summer. Yeah.
What's kind of, I remember the lawmakers in the House making a joke about how many drinks you could carry back to your seat or that sort of thing and the long lines. So what's the actual impact been at these, games now where people are drinking?
It's been good for revenue. I mean, you can always make money, selling booze, and that was the idea of it, was to increase revenue for all the schools, and that's happened, and it's spawned a lot of these like premium seat areas, club seat areas, where you can get a mixed drink now. You can get IPA or whatever kind of beer you want that wasn't possible before. So it makes it another reason to get people out of their homes, not watching the game on TV, and into the stadium.
The stadium with their fancy seating now. I just add my comment about especially at the Duke end zone. My local allegiance is to Duke. It's fine for a political reporter to be biased about sports, right? Since I don't cover Duke sports, but they've taken away some of the cheap seats. So, all right, when we come back after the break, we're going to talk about moments in political sports history, from Speaker Moore and Governor Cooper cheering on Carolina, Coach K coming to the mansion. So anyway, we'll get to that in our picks for Headliner of the Week. We'll be right back.
Get in the game with the college-branded Venmo debit card. Rep your team with every tap and earn up to 5% cash back with Venmo Stash, a new rewards program from Venmo. No monthly fee, no minimum balance, just school pride and spending power. Get in the game and sign up for the Venmo debit card at venmo.com/collegecard. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. Select schools available. Venmo stash terms and exclusions apply at venmo.me/stash terms. Max $100 cash back per month.
Are you stuck staring at your W-2? Are tax refund worries holding you back? You probably have FOMO, the fear of messing up. The fix? Using TurboTax on Intuit Credit Karma. They find every credit and deduction to help you get every refund dollar you deserve, or your money back. It's time to overcome your fear of messing up and get your taxes done right. Start filing today in the Credit Karma app.
You're listening to Under the Dome. I'm Capitol Bureau Chief Don Vaughan, here with my NNO colleague, sports editor and reporter Steve Wiseman. We talked about laws and sports, and now we're talking about politics and sports and great moments in North Carolina sports politics history. As I mentioned right before the break, one of the things that, just visually, I didn't see, but to see Republican House Speaker Tim Moore and Democratic Governor Roy Cooper in almost matching shirts. They both went to UNC Chapel Hill. They're both hardcore UNC Chapel Hill fans, and them cheering, maybe high-fiving at, what was that, Final Four?
In New Orleans, yeah. When the Duke UNC Final Four, the epic, apocalypse has happened, they're playing.
So, sports brings everybody together.
It does.
People who spend time at the legislature, the end of the House sessions, it's called points of personal privilege. And it's as a reporter, it's helpful to me because if I'm finishing writing a story of something serious they just did, I'm finishing the story. But they'll talk about it's my seatmate's birthday. And there's so much sports trash talk also that goes on during points of personal privilege. So anyway, all right. So give me your other highlights that in your tenure of things you remember.
Yeah, so now a lot of my things happen at Duke with Duke events because I cover them mostly. And the night that President Obama came to Cameron Indoor Stadium for a Duke Carolina basketball game when Zion Williamson was playing, the game that his shoe broke. Famously.
The shoe.
And and there was somebody had a camera on Obama, and he said his shoe broke. What happened? So
he had the black bomber jacket on, I think.
He
right?
did. He was very casual, and
didn't he go practice with UNC basketball?
He did. Now that was when he was campaigning the first time.
Okay.
In 2008.
Okay.
He scrimmaged a little bit with the Tar Heels.
Yeah.
That's before I was here, but I know about that.
Yeah.
So that's another great moment with him. President Bush, the first President Bush, 41, was at a game at Cameron Indoor Stadium one time. So that was kind of two presidents in the same building for basketball. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. And since we're talking about Duke, Coach K, who, you'd think that Governor Cooper would not be a fan of because, he's the Duke men's basketball coach, legendary. But he was invited to get the Order of the Longleaf pine, and that was a really fun thing to cover. I actually wore Hokie maroon for it, but Cooper had his dog Violet come down the steps with a Duke collar on, and it was quite the scene. Coach K and Cooper did not take any questions after the ceremony, so I'm not sure what I would have asked, but so a lot of Duke, UNC. What about state? Can we think of any politicians in state? No. Uh-oh.
I'm not right.
I'm
now.
sure someone will tell us later.
In Arizona last year that I didn't see.
Yeah.
There had to be some lawmakers there.
Yeah,
But,
I always look up where everybody went. Like I said, Moore went to UNC. Cooper went to UNC. Berger, I believe, went to Wake Forest, if I'm correct. And I actually did a demographic story once on the legislature about where everyone went to school. And there's a lot of UNC there. There's some state, but it's more, I don't know, UNC in the political world, I guess.
So Dan Blue is Jeff Capel's father-in-law.
Oh, that's right. He went to Duke. Blue went to Duke, didn't he? Yeah, that's right.
So
that's
Jeff Capel played at Duke.
Yeah.
Was assistant coach at Duke. Is now the head coach at Pittsburgh.
Yeah. I think Robert Rees.
His daughter is Dan Blue's.
Okay.
His wife is Dan Blue's daughter.
Okay. Well, there you go.
So there's another tie-in for you.
Sports and politics. All right. Well, let's get to our picks for headliner of the week. Steve, what is your headliner?
Well, this NIL thing with high school athletics, I think it's going to change, not quickly the way the board would rather do that, but with it going through the courts, there's just too much pressure. It was just unfair, really, for private school kids to be able to monetize this and public school kids not to. And so it actually, caused inequities that way, where you get kids transferring to private schools because they want to make money. Mm-hmm. So it was just a wrong system, and I think they're on their way to changing that. It's just, again, among the many changes that are happening in the sports world right now.
I think NIL is one of those things that when you think about the before times, and now it's just like, this is what it is. But, all these years of players not really personally benefiting beyond obviously their degree, if they get a degree, but there's plenty of one and dones out there.
The thing that drove it home for me, the difference in it, was when Coach K's grandson got arrested for DUI in Paula Banchero's vehicle. And we found out the car was owned by a car dealership in Roxborough. And oh my gosh, before NIL, that would have been a huge scandal.
Yeah.
And that was just like 6 months before when that became legal. And so we found, it's an NIL deal. It's fine.
Yeah.
So totally different world.
Yeah. People argue and debate like with any law, like for years and years, and then it's done and the switch is flipped and then it's just the standard, well, since you mentioned public-private and education, that's a good segue to my headliner of the week, which, as we're recording this, there seems to be a deal afoot for some sort of mini budget bill or a bill funding the backlog of private school vouchers, which is called the Opportunity Scholarship Program, which Republicans have been big supporters of and Democrats have been big opponents of. But we have a 3-day voting session that was already scheduled, September 9th, 10th, and 11th, these sort of placeholder days that they put in when they left earlier in the summer. There's also a big voting session in November, the week before Thanksgiving. And that's sort of a post-election surprise of depending on who the next governor is and what the legislature, the Republican-controlled legislature, wants to do, if it's Stein versus Robinson or really, anything else they decide to come up with. So my headliner is that, again, because of the way things are in that building, things could blow up and there's nothing, or there's something, and that's kind of what makes it interesting over there. So I hope you all have enjoyed our special crossover episode of Under the Dome. Steve, thanks for being on.
This was really fun. Thanks.
Yeah,
thanks
I'm sure there'll be some sports-related legislation, the upcoming long session that we'll have a chance to talk about. So.
Absolutely.
All right, for the News and Observer, I'm Dawn Vaughan with Steve Wiseman. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
For more from our politics team, subscribe to the News and Observer at newsobserver.com/subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at Under the Dome and NC Insider, and sign up for our weekly political newsletter, also called Under the Dome, at newsobserver.com/newsletters. Thanks for listening.